Welcome to the chapter 18 of the discussion today, which is on assertive behavior and transactional analysis. So, it's why it is important to learn assertive behavior and transactional analysis is in organizations sometimes we face situations where there are conflicting viewpoints present by other parties, and sometimes we feel like we are to make our voices known to others, we have to make our viewpoints known to others, and this is very important part of communication so that others get to know what we are thinking about what others are telling, or even if not what others are telling, what is our viewpoint regarding a problem at hand, or how we are contributing to a particular decision. Now, when we are trying to communicate our views to others, specifically as a response to others' opinion about some of our work, or something that we may disagree to what others are telling, there are various ways of doing it. One could be aggressive in nature, one could be passive in nature, and the other one could be assertive in nature. Now, both being passive in nature or aggressive in nature doesn't lead to a very good outcome, in the sense it doesn't lead to a positive outcome of like a win-win situation. So when it is assertive, but when it is assertive in nature, both it is more of adult to adult communication, and without less of emotional coloring to it, which is there in aggressive behavior, and we get to know what are our exact viewpoints regarding the issues at hand. So, in this chapter, we are going to see what is assertive behavior and different types of transactional analysis. The objective of this chapter is to discuss what is assertive behavior, what is transactional analysis. Under it, there are structural analysis, descriptive model, what are the different kinds of transactions, phenomena of different transactions like strokes, life positions, scripts, games, and the diagnosis of transactional analysis. So, first we will start with the definition of assertive behavior and try to differentiate it from a passive behavior and aggressive behavior. We will also try to learn what are the different verbal and non-verbal components of assertive behavior, and in different situations, like when there is a conflict, when you have to pass your communication to others, pass your message to others, and when you have to make your points known, how does it differ, like if you are following a passive style, assertive style, and an aggressive style, and what are the related outcomes to it. So, we will move through this discussion starting with the definition of assertive behavior. Assertiveness, if you can see, is the process of expressing feelings, asking for legitimate changes, and giving and receiving honest feedback. So, these are the three parts to assertive behavior. One is that of expressing feelings, then asking for changes which are legitimate in nature, which are required changes, and changes which we do not want to bring, because emotionally we are very attached to a particular thought process. So, how to bring in and asking for changes which are legitimate, and giving and receiving honest feedback. So, honest feedback is, in the sense, if something is wrong and we observe, we feel like this correction needs to be done. So, in assertiveness, through assertive behavior, what we try to do is to give a honest feedback regarding these issues. An assertive person is again not afraid to request someone to change very offensive behavior, and also is not uncomfortable refusing unreasonable demands, requests from someone else. But this is where this assertive people's communication differ from that of passive behavior. In passive communication, people who are following passive communications, they sometimes cannot tell, like, okay, this is an unreasonable demand that you are making on me, or this is not possible for me to do it because this is something unnecessary or unreasonable that you are asking from me. But in assertive behavior, people are not uncomfortable while refusing unreasonable demands from someone else. So we can see, like, assertive people are direct, honest and expressive. So they feel confident, they gain self-respect and make others feel valued. So in assertive communication, what we do, we give a direct feedback, we give a honest feedback, and we express our minds with due respect to the other person in front of whom or about whom we are making our comments. And people feel confident and gain self-respect, and these attitudes make others valued also. So in contrast, when the same behavior is through aggressive people, they try to humiliate others. They try to humiliate others, and passive people, they allow others to humiliate them. Like passive people, and which are called unassertive people, elicit either pity or scorn from others. So in aggressive behavior, people may humiliate others, but in passive behavior, I stimulate others to be like humiliate me, or and I invite scorn from others. So that is the difference, where when you're talking of the difference between aggressive behavior, assertive behavior, and your passive behavior or unassertive behavior. Being assertive in a situation, it involves 5 stages. So when getting confronted with a very intolerable situation, assertive people, what they do is, first they describe the situation in details and describe it objectively. Then after objectively observing a particular situation, they try to express their emotional feelings and reactions to it. They empathize also with others' viewpoint, because my viewpoint is my viewpoint, other person's viewpoint is that person's viewpoint, based on his or her perception, family background, experience, etc., etc. So what happens? In an assertive people, they will respect the other person's positions also. Then what may happen? They may suggest problem solving alternatives and indicate the consequences, both positive and negative, that are going to follow, like from the alternative suggested. And out of that, these people are going to make their own points, which according to them, they are correct in their thinking process. Verbal and non-verbal components of assertive behavior include, first is the eye contact, which is a measure of sincerity and self-confidence, and erect body posture and direct body positioning is the increase. It's the effect which is affecting the impact of the message. So, appropriate gestures may be used. Congruent facial expressions are essential and strong, but modulated voice, tone, and volume will be convincing. So, whenever we are trying to speak about certain things, like how we modulate our voice, what is the volume with what we speak, all these things will determine whether we are assertive in nature or not. So, and the most important of it may be honest and spontaneous and forceful expression of the honest reaction. So, without like just thinking too much of what others may go to think, like if I give them a genuine feedback, that is where it's most spontaneous and forceful expression of an honest reaction to something. When we are comparing alternative behavioral styles, and if we can see like passive, assertive and aggressive, if we are making a comparison, the characteristics of it is that in passive we allow others to choose for us. We are emotionally dishonest, indirect, self-denying, inhibited. In win-loss situations, one loses. If you do get your own way, it is indirect. In assertive behavior, people choose for themselves. They are honest in nature, direct and self-respecting, self-expressing. They are straightforward, convert win-loss to win-win. Aggressive behavior is they choose for others. So, they are inappropriately honest, direct, self-enhancing, self-expressive, derogatory. So, main point here is derogatory, where win-lose situation in which a person wins. Your feeling in the exchange process in passive behavior, it is anxious, ignored, helpless and manipulated, angry at yourself and others. When it is assertive behavior, it is confident, self-respecting, goal-oriented, valued, later accomplished. In aggressive, people are righteous, superior, depreciatory and controlling, latter is possibly guilty. So, what we see in the film, in assertiveness there is a feeling of accomplishment, while in aggressive behavior latter there is a possible guilt of like we were aggressive at a certain point of time. The others' feelings in the exchanges, passive it's guilty or superior, and in assertives it is valued, respected. In aggressive it is humiliated, defensive, resentful and hurt. How others view us in the exchange process. In passive it is lack of respect, distrust, can be considered as a pushover, do not know where you stand. In assertive it is more of respect, trust, know where you stand, and aggressive it is vengeful, angry, distrustful, fearful. Outcome of the whole thing is that others achieve their goals at your expense. So, if you are passive in nature, others will gain their position at your at at your expense, and your rights are violated. Outcome in assertiveness is determined by above board negotiations. Yours and others' rights are negotiated and respected. In aggressiveness, you achieve your goal at others' expenses. Your rights are upheld, others are violated. Underlying relief system is the what you feel like when you are going following these three stages or types. Like, I'll never make anyone uncomfortable or displeased except myself, is what they think, like the passive people think. In assertiveness, I have a responsibility to protect my own rights. I respect others, but not necessarily their behavior. This is very important. Like, I have nothing to do. I have no vengeance against the person concerned. So I have a respect for the person, but I may not agree with the things that the person is telling or the ideas. So I have a responsibility to protect my own right. I respect others, but not necessarily their behavior. And in aggressiveness is, I have put others down to protect myself. So in order to nurture my own self-interest, what I have done is I have put others down, make them appear humiliating, make them appear like they are sort of like not able to do anything, and so that putting down others helps me to protect myself. And this tells you about the difference of passive, assertive and aggressive behavior, and that is what the underlying belief system is talking of. Now, their assertiveness is, people can be taught to be assertive, and there are certain skills of developing assertiveness. Now here we'll try to focus into some of the systematic assertive skills, and first is that of called broken record, which is nothing but keep on repeating calm repetition of what you want to say, and that is done over and over again. So, and this is where you use the technique of persistence. This teaches you to use persistence without you having to rehearse arguments or angry feelings beforehand. So, what happens, like, you do not have to go for some manipulative verbal side traps, etc. But what you do is you make your points known repeatedly, calm repetition of whatever you want to say again and again. That is called a broken record. In fogging, what happens? It is a process of accepting or manipulative criticism very calmly by acknowledging the critic and then telling, like, probably there is some truth in what that person has said, but this is how the actual functioning is done. So this is called like fogging. You tell that there is some truth in whatever points you are telling, but this is also the another way of seeing that thing. So that is taken care of when you're talking of fogging, because people know like you are ready to receive criticism without becoming defensive or aggressive in nature, and while giving no rewards to those who are using this manipulative criticism to overpower you and bringing you to the maybe passive state or something like that. So that this part is called fogging. Free information. Free information is we have to be clever enough to we should be clever enough to receive simple cues given by social partner in everyday conversation about himself or herself and what is important to him or her, and you have to catch this information when and catch this in free information, which is and make the discussion proceed in that way, feeling less shy in entering into conversation about a zone which could be very specific, private to that other person. So what we have to take care of the free information available, and then without feeling shy we have to proceed with that, because maybe the person who is giving this free information is keen on progressing with this discussion also. Negative assertion. Negative assertion is when you accept your errors and faults, but for that you do not require to apologize, and what is done over here is we are ready to accept the constructive criticism about some of the negative qualities. So what happens over here is it allows people to look more comfortably into their own negatives and face the negatives properly and make corrective behavior, which will help them to develop as a person. So this is where it is very important. This negative assertion is important. So what happens? I am accepting my faults. I am criticizing my faults, and we are trying to find out newer ways of dealing with this problem. So, and we are not aggressive, feeling shy or appearing to be anxious, because we have come to know some of our negatives. Assertiveness and effectiveness in interpersonal dynamics, that is what we were talking about at the start, like for different domains of work. How does it look like when we are talking of passive communication, when you are talking of assertive communication and aggressive communication? So the left hand side shows the various domains which are under discussion, and the right hand side shows you the different ways in how it's done and what are the possible outcomes. So when you're talking of conflict, so in passive what they do is avoid conflict, and what we try to do is we try to make the issue very trivial. and they may think of, okay, it was not worth responding because the issue at hand was not that much important. Next is the same conflict when we are going through the assertive behavior. Here what we are trying to do is we are giving a candid feedback and we are giving a constructive feedback. When it is aggressive in nature, the same thing, the same conflict, the behavior becomes belligerent and demanding in nature. So, for the same domain, for the three types of activities, three types of activities, the response is different. The ways of looking at the problem is different. When you're talking of negotiation, then in passive behavior there is a weak opening and maybe we are ready to for certain concessions. When we're talking of assertive behavior, so what we're trying to do is we are making the opening very strong and then we're trying to integrate the solutions. When it is aggressive in nature, so it is extreme opening. So its extreme opening means like we try to tell everything maybe of oneself and use aggressive techniques so that I know better than you sort of thing. Teamwork. In teamwork, the passive people are generally silent without any opinions made and they conform to the team's behavior. In assertiveness, there is egalitarianism, and open-ended and engaged. In teamwork, then when you're talking of aggressive behavior, it is confrontational in nature and dominance seeking. So I want to get dominance. So you have to learn to listen to my viewpoints. These are the things when you're talking of teamwork. Applicant or the influence is it's for the passive people, it's supplicant, it's appeasing in nature. For assertive, it is active, they are forthright in nature and they are persuasive in nature also. And for aggressive people, it is bullying and cajoling. Decision making, or the important things is decision making in passive case, it is equivocal, indecisive. So what happens? It's better not to differ, but it's easy to say the same thing at others are saying so that we can mix with the crowd. So equivocal and indecisive. When we are talking of assertive behavior, one important point is it is proactive in nature and it is inclusive in nature. When you are talking of aggressive behavior, it is unilateral and it serves only oneself. It is self-serving in nature. These are some of the points along with the domains, like when you're talking of conflict, negotiation, teamwork, influence, decision making, these are the domains, and these on the right hand side, these are different styles of responding. And you find like the assertive behavior maybe is the more better way of responding than others. When we are talking of assertive behavior, when you're talking of negative behavior, or even when you're talking of assertiveness, aggressiveness, whatever it is. So this is nothing but one-to-one communication, and this communication occurs in a much better way when one person responds appropriately to the other person. So what we are emphasizing in transactional analysis is social transactions between people when they are trying to respond to each other. Then this whole process is called transactional analysis, and there are different steps to transactional analysis. The different models, as we stated, as first is the structural ego state model. In it, it is thought like there are three ego states that that people generally have. One is the parent is a taught concept. What we have learnt, what others, the conscience tells us to do. So parent is a taught concept. Child is our felt concept, like how we feel about certain things. And adult is our thought concept, what we are thinking about certain things. So parent is taught, adult is thought, and child is felt concept. So with this, in the structural ego state model, what we try to find out, like if these three states are present within an individual, each of these three states, and I am communicating to another person, then from which state should I communicate? It is the child state, adult state, or the parent state. And if I am not able to map this state with these particular type in the other person, there is one like adult communicating to child, or child communicating to adult, parent communicating to child, and child communicating to parent, adult communicating to adult. If these things are not known, then we may face certain problems. So what you're trying to do over here is to study the details of who is the parent, who is the child, and we try to see like the interaction process. And there are certain subdivisions also. In parent, now the parent is divided into two major parts. The nurturing parent, first one is the nurturing parent, and the which is a parent which nurtures and the parent which spoils. And controlling is again structuring, positive, and critical, which is negative. So parent is divided into four parts now: nurturing and spoiling, structuring, and critical. Adult state is not generally divided, it remains as a single entity representing the accounting function or mode, like which can draw the resources from both the child and parent. Child is a person who is sort of demanding nature, and without much of reasons for the demand. So, but now child is again divided into 4 parts. What's adapted child is cooperative and passive and compliant or resistant in nature, and free child is spontaneous and immature. So, and again this response from the child could be from each of these 4 quadrants. So, altogether now what we are having is like from parents we have 4 divisions, adult is only 1 and child is again 4. So, with this framework we again interact with the parent, child and adult combination present in another person. And there are certain cues through which you can understand from what ego state we are functioning. The physical features of it is angry or impatient body language and expression, then finger pointing, etc. Child is emotionally sad expressions, despair, temper tantrums are there, winning voice, then rolling eyes, shrugging shoulders, tensing, delight, laughter, speaking behind, raising hands to speak. Then all these things show like there is some these are not very matured ways of doing things. When you're talking of adult, it is physical, is attentive, interested, straightforward, tilted, then straightforward and non-threatening and non-threatened. Verbal. In verbal, we use certain words which we can tell, if that is told number of times, we can tell from which ego state that the person is functioning. If it is from the parent state, in verbal, parents generally tell you always do these things, never try to get away. I have told it for once and for all. And the words are generally judgmental in nature, critical words, and this is patronizing language. So, like whether you either you hear it or you are gone sort of words. So, always, never, for once and for all these words are there in the parent state. In child state, there are certain words like I wish, I do know, I want, I'm gonna, I don't care. So, I owe not again sort of thing. So, this is the worst day of my life. So, these are more related with emotions and their ways of reacting to it. When you're speaking of adult, the verbal cues given here are more of like WH questions: why, what, how, who, where, and why, when, how much, in what way, queries, that comparative expressions, that queries which help to compare facts, reason statements, true or false. So, these are certain differences when we between like parent child and the adult, and when they are again when they are again contributing to the like so yeah, when they're contributing towards like the communication. So these cues we have to understand, and if we are able to understand these cues present in other person's communication, we can start interacting from the proper state of mind. Like if someone is communicating from a parent state, then maybe responding in the child state will keep the communication going on. So these things, this chart may help us to know exactly what that state is the employee is communicating from. When we are talking of a descriptive model, it tells of like in how we function or behave with others, and it is differentiated into modes of behavior like effective modes and ineffective modes. Ineffective modes are negative controlling parents. When parents are communicating like you are not okay, and the result is punitive in nature. Next is negative nurturing parents, and communicates again like you are not okay message. When in this state, the person will do things for others which they are capable of doing for themselves. So what is the, if the other person B can do certain things, still again the A will do certain things for him or her, assuming that the other person B cannot do it for him or her herself. So in this state, the parent is overprotective in nature. Next is negative adapted child. In negative adapted child, it gives the message, I am not okay. It gives the message like I am not okay, and the person over adapts to others and tends to experience such emotions as depression, unrealistic fear, etc. Negative free child is the person runs wild with no restriction or boundaries, and the express a feeling more of expression is you are not okay message. So what happens over here, what I believe in, like, and what I communicate, like if I believe like you are not okay and also I am not okay messages, these are and how do we know like these people are believing in these messages is from their interactions and how their modes of behavior, like what they're trying to do for themselves or for others, and how they are communicating with each other. Effective modes are the positive nurturing parents communicates the message you are okay. When in this mode, the person is caring and affirming in nature. Positive controlling parent, it communicates the message you are okay. So this is boundary setting mode, offering constructive criticism whilst being caring about the firm. Next comes positive adapted child. Communicates I am okay. So from this message you learn like the what are the rules to help us live with others. Positive free child is communicates again I am okay message. This is the creative, fun loving, curious and energetic model. So again in this case like okay messages are communicated like you are okay, I am okay sort of thing, and it is divided into positive nurturing parents, and then controlling parents, affirmative like adaptive child, positive adapted child and positive free child. So again how do you know like these are the steps from which people are communicating is observing some of their behaviors as mentioned over here, and correspondingly we have to choose the state of ego state that we have to choose to respond to these people in these states in a more effective way. Accounting mode. In accounting mode, we are okay messages are communicated, and and it allows the adult to assess reality in here and now. When accounting mode is the executive position, it is possible to choose which is the other best possible mode to go for, in the effective mode to go for, because adult is there in the situation, so in the central to the situation. This is called the accounting mode. So accounting mode means like we are communicating from an adult state of mind. So when using the descriptive behavioral model, the term accounting mode helps to separate it from from the structural model, where it is referred to as an adult. So more or less similar types of things. In what we do in accounting mode is we take account of the present context as well as the situation, and as well as trying to deal with the appropriate try to deal with the appropriate mode, and what would it be like when we are trying to communicate. What are the different kinds of transactions? Like reciprocal or complementary transactions, cross transactions, and covert transactions. And on the left you find the ego states addressed. So in reciprocal or complementary communication we find both the partners are addressing the ego state the other is in. In cross transaction, the partners are communicating ego states other than what they are in, and that's why it is getting crossed. Covert transactions are explicit social conversion. in covert behavior, like there are two types of talks going on, like on the top people are telling on the like people are telling something, but inherently in the mind other thought processes going on. These are called implicit psychological transactions. So, and these explicit social transactions and implicit social transactions, they go hand in hand. When we are talking of strokes, these are recognitions, attentions, or responsiveness that one person gives to other. It can be both positive and negative, conditional and unconditional in nature. And people generally are hungry of strokes. When there is a lack of positive stroke, people may choose to get negative strokes. They may even seek negative strokes. Transactions can be viewed as positive or negative depending on the strokes within them. So, stroking can be physical, verbal, or non-verbal, and people have particular strokes that will accept and reject, that they will accept and reject. In transactional analysis, there are various points to it, and first is the script. So, script is the life plan made when we are growing up. It is directed to payoff. It is based on our early decisions about how do we decide about our life. So, script is reinforced by parents or other influential people in our life. Then what are the important things in scripts are like if we have a script, like initial way of looking into our life plan, then what we try to do is redefine the reality and unconsciously redefine the reality, distorting the reality to make it more closer to our preferred ways of seeing things and and discounting and discounting some of the important things which are there. We discount, give less worth to certain, maybe some contradictory facts, and what is told to do is scripts may fall into 2-3 categories like tragic, heroic, or banal variety. So, based on these things, like working styles developed are be perfect, be strong, try hard, please others, and hurry up. So it is an important recognition given in ourselves and others that we can work then that we can then work to the best rather than by driven by certain things. So important parts of scripts like injunctions, drivers are important in deciding about the situations. And next we'll see like other parts of transactions, which is time structuring, which is we structure time in various ways like rituals, pastime, activities, games, intimacy, and we have to obtain a balance between withdrawal, and we have to have a balance between these activities so that we have sufficient time to play and intimacy. And if it doesn't occur, then it would be beneficial to explore like what we might be avoiding. So in transactions, the time, the how we define things are very important. How we structure time, how we define things in scripts are important. So in games there is a series of behavior transactions that is complementary, ulterior in nature, and proceed towards some predictable outcome. So each game has a payoff for those playing it. So games may vary in flexibility and tenacity and intensity. Based on the degree of acceptability and potential harm from playing it, games can be divided into first degree, second degree, and third degree. So games can be also classified based on their roles, psychological paradigms, dynamics, and payoffs. These are some types of common games like why don't you, yes, but, if I weren't for you, so if it weren't for you, etc. So these, what we listed, is some of the common games which are there. In every game there may be people play there are people who generally play three different roles of persecutor, victim, and rescuer. There can also be sudden switches in role when the victim becomes the rescuer or the rescuer becomes the persecutor. So, and again, games vary in their length of time that passes while the game is being played, and games people generally play to structure their time, to acquire strokes, to maintain the substitute feeling and the system of thinking, belief, and action that is going on. So, to confirm parental injunctions and further the life script. So, again, to prove one's life position. So, there could be various reasons why people play games. There are various ways to deal with games, like cross the transaction by responding from a different ego state, then pick up the ulterior rather than the social message. So when a person says, I can't do this, I am useless, rather than saying, let me do this for you, instead say, it sounds like you have a problem, what do you want me to do about it? So it is said from the adult ego stage. So the opening message of the game is always entails a discount. We have to detect discounts and identify game invitations and diffuse them with the options. So discount is what, when we diffuse some aspect of the problem, ignore some aspect of the problem which will assist us in resolving it. So if someone is telling like it's very difficult for me to do certain things, so what we do is we try to help that person. So we are to understand the discount given at each of the stages, and we have to act accordingly. like what is this discount about and what it is telling to do. Replace the game strokes is loss of strokes may be threat to a survival. So what we do, if we cannot give sufficient positive strokes, or then what we'll go for strokes. If we don't have sufficient number of positive strokes or give ourselves positive strokes, we'll go for quantity rather than quality of strokes and play games to get them. So this loss of strokes is also a loss of excitement that the game has generated. So what is required is to replace the game strokes. Then again apprehending about what is the role that the other person is trying to take. Like by getting cues from answering what happens again and again, when did it start, what is going to happen next, then what happens, so how what is the possibility of ending, so how do we feel after it ends, all this will suggest like what is the person, the game role the other person is going to take. Behavioral diagnosis is word, tone, tempo of speech, expressions, postures. These help us to provide certain cues to the games. Like as we were discussing earlier, like parent modes typically contain value judgments, adult words are clear and definable, child modes are more direct and spontaneous. So these are some of the indicators which help us to know like what is the state taken by the other person and how we should react to it. So social diagnosis is observing the kind of transaction the other person is having with others. So if a person you see is caretaking for other person, means maybe someone else like to whom this person is communicating could be in a child state, and though not in the adapted child mode. So how we respond to others in many cases is dependent on how we see what is the state the other person is responding from. So that is called the social diagnosis. Past history also helps to determine the ways of responding. Like if we had feelings similar to those what we are expressing now, then as a child, then maybe we'll respond from a child state. Or if our mother talked in similar ways as a parent, now we try to behave in similar ways. So these are historical diagnoses. Phenomenological diagnosis, when we re-experience the past in the same way rather than just remembering about it, then this diagnosis is taken by self-examination. So if there is something accurate or inaccurate, the as the child ego state may not want the adult to know what is going on. We have certain questions following this chapter, which is regarding what is assertiveness, role of assertive behavior for developing employee and organizational effectiveness, transactional analysis, describe and compare, structural and descriptive model, what are the different kinds of transaction, discuss the different phenomena behind transaction strokes, live position scripts in games. But before concluding, we must say, like, these behaviors, assertive behavior, or when we're speaking of transactional analysis, these are to be practiced rather than being taught. And like it requires more of like a practical orientations, practical teaching, practical observations, seeing others behave, detecting the cues from others, and then only we will be able to know what is the state that the other person is functioning from, because sometimes there could be overlap of the states and persons, cues given, like if we are not very expert enough to detect the cues, because cues also come as a bundle of cues, and if you are not able to detect it, maybe you will not be finding out the proper way of interacting with the other person. Thank you.